From Pacific Cardiovascular Associates Medical Group, we welcome Dr. Chris Champion to the program. Thanks for joining us. First time here, long time watcher, I'm sure. So Dr. Champion, you guys have this new, I don't know how new it is, but it's this thing called remote patient monitoring.
Yeah.
And tell me about what that's all about.
So remote patient monitoring is really simple. I mean, it sounds like sophisticated technology, but really what it is, it's a way of monitoring patients from home. One of the most common problems that we have is that we need to follow blood pressure very carefully to ensure adequate blood pressure control, but we don't always get those blood pressure readings. So RPM, that's the easy way of saying it, is just a way of being able to collect blood pressure readings and transmit those to your doctor.
Okay, so is that something I'm walking around with a cuff on my arm all day long, or how is that working if I'm a patient?
If
you're sending me home with that.
Right. It can sound a little intimidating because sometimes patients think there's going to be a lot of technology involved, and it's really just a simple, high-quality blood pressure monitor. One of the questions patients always have when they get their own blood pressure monitor is, what brand do I need to get? How do I know that it's working? This is a very good, reliable blood pressure monitor, but most importantly, it's wireless. So it transmits the blood pressure readings straight to us. Okay. So we get all of them.
So anytime they're home doing like, hey, I want you to do one in the morning, in the afternoon, and the night, or whatever that might be prescribed by you guys, they're home with that system and they sit down and they do that, and then you guys are getting the information right then and there, so you can see if something's going up and down or sideways on somebody, right?
Exactly. So it really is just checking blood pressure as frequently as we require, which is usually, we try not to make it cumbersome. So maybe once a day, checking at different times. So it's not a continuous monitor, but it's only as good as you use it. So if you don't use it, we don't get good numbers. But the readings we get, that's how we determine whether blood pressure is controlled. So we get the highs, the lows, the averages.
And you can make an adjustment for somebody. Hey, I think I've been noticing over this trend, you're trending up, we need to adjust your medication or do something like that. Or what are you doing different at home?
So let's contrast this to what patients traditionally do, which is check their blood pressure. Maybe they bring a log of measurements to their visit. Maybe they don't. Maybe they remember the numbers. Maybe they don't. Okay. And so months may go by between visits, and we have no idea what their blood pressure is doing. With the RPM, we get instantaneous readings. Okay. And so we can know, hey, your blood pressure this week is really high. What's going on? Are you taking your medications? Is something changing? And we can make those adjustments. We always have a nurse involved in the care, so patients have access to the nurse, but importantly, they communicate these readings to us, so if there's a problem, it's not just high blood pressure, it's sometimes low blood pressure that can be an issue. And so patient safety is always the concern. Keeping that blood pressure stable is the mission.
Now, what's wrong with somebody buying one of those home ones that has an app on it and then sending you the information that way? Is it just not as effective, or patients don't do it as well, or what are you finding the benefits of this where you guys are getting it directly?
Well, the problem is getting that information to your physician on a regular basis. We don't always have a great pipeline to be able to transmit that information. So the good thing about the equipment through RPM is the service provides us those live blood pressures daily. Okay. And so if there's a question, we can go straight to an app that we have that allows us to see that. But most of the apps and blood pressure monitors that are out there, it's hard to get those readings to your physician on a regular basis. Some people are very good about it and do that and just provide logs to their doctor, which often means faxing them in or bringing them in. But this makes it a little bit easier for the physician and the patient.
Okay. Do you see this remote kind of monitoring as maybe a first step into a lot of different ways you guys will be able to monitor patients for all sorts of things in the cardiovascular world?
Absolutely, yeah. So blood pressure is just the most common problem that we see out there. When people get up to, say, 80 years of age, about 80% of people are going to have high blood pressure. Very common problem. And so making sure it's adequately controlled is key, but there's so many other problems that patients are dealing with. We, of course, are focused on blood pressure because the downstream effect of uncontrolled blood pressure is heart attack and stroke. Okay. But some people that we see, of course, already have had heart attacks, abnormal heart rhythms. And so there are other types of monitors that are sort of in development that can monitor things like heart rhythm and provide that information to us as well. A lot of what we do, though, is based on what the government says we can use the equipment for. And so it requires FDA approval for many of these devices.
Okay. And when you prescribe this for a patient to go home and do this, does medical insurance usually cover those things? Or is it that, hey, this is going to be out of pocket?
It varies from patient to patient. So for some patients, there's no cost whatsoever. For some patients, there is a cost that's associated with it. So before we ever arrange it, we make sure patients are aware of what their portion may be. But of course, we hope that it's a fully covered service for most patients, especially Medicare age patients.
What have you seen as a difference maker with this since you guys have started using this as opposed to before you had this technology?
Well, certainly the adequacy of control. I mean, I have been shocked when I've seen some of the readings come back because I've had patients swear up and down, my blood pressure looks fantastic. Yeah, I think it's great, or, I think my blood pressure, it's high in the office, but it's normal at home.
Right, that blood pressure anxiety kind of thing.
Exactly.
The white coat anxiety.
White coat hypertension. And so many patients that come to the doctor's office and blood pressure is kind of high in the office, and they say, well, there was traffic on the way, or I'm really stressed out today. But then when we follow those blood pressure readings at home, we see, hey, you know what, your blood pressure is really not well controlled. And some of those readings can be dangerously high in some cases. And so without knowing that information, we can't keep people protected.
Now, when you see something like that going on, is that something that your office is proactive in terms of, let's call up patient X and say they need to come in for an appointment, or you make up maybe a home, kind of a virtual visit or so whatever you do to say, we need to make what's going on and we need to make an adjustment?
Yeah. So usually when we make these orders for blood pressure monitoring, we have alerts that are set up. So if blood pressure is above or below a certain level, it triggers an alert. And that way the physician is notified, and we can kind of make an action based on the results. Obviously, blood pressure elevation beyond a certain level, sometimes we call right away. We don't wait for people to come in. We may do a telehealth visit to be able to kind of address issues. In many cases, I just call patients and say, hey, I've been looking at your blood pressures, and here's what we need to do, which could include stopping or holding medications for low blood pressure, or adding additional medications. Or if I see some really dangerous readings, I may say, hey, we need to get you checked out at the hospital, make sure things are okay.
Okay. And in terms of security, do their patients have concerns like, oh, I don't want to be transmitting my information to the world. What if it's hacked? Whatever. Those kinds of, I imagine that people have a little bit of concern like, oh, I'm sending
with AI and all these things kind of coming into play, people do get a little bit nervous about security. Of course, these are, one of the biggest concerns with all medical information is HIPAA compliance and privacy. And so all the equipment that we use, of course, is HIPAA compliant. That's why we make sure we use our own equipment that wirelessly transmits it safely, so it's not going to be hacked, and can get the information to us without a concern for security issues. So yeah, I would say there's not a grave concern for most patients that they're going to get hacked and that their blood pressure is going to be made known to the world. But yeah, we make sure.
But it's all those things are already in place in the first place.
Yep.
What is the standard for you to say, I think you need to go home with a monitor that's going to communicate? What are you guys looking for? Is that it's not for every patient, right?
No, not necessarily. I mean, clearly there are many patients who come in, blood pressure seems to be well controlled. They may be on one medication. They may bring a log of measurements that shows, hey, here's my blood pressure and it's really well controlled. But in many cases, we see blood pressures that are high in clinic or that fluctuate dramatically. Even at home, patients may say, my numbers go from this to that, and I'm not sure if it's my machine or if it's my blood pressure. Those are ideal patients that we target because this allows us to make sure we get accurate readings and then make decisions based on good information.
So if I'm watching this at home and I'm monitoring my own blood pressure, and I say, oh, I maybe have a problem, what does that number look like? If I'm going up 20 points, if I'm going up 10 points in fluctuations through the day, so I say, okay, maybe I need to check this out.
Yeah, certainly it depends on the patient. One of the problems we see in older patients sometimes is that blood pressures do go up and down a lot. So we may have to accept we're not going to get perfect blood pressure all the time. We want the majority of readings to be in a normal range. That means it's controlled. So generally under 140 on that top number is maybe what we may be shooting for. But for patients who have dramatic fluctuation, we may accept numbers that aren't completely normal just to try and keep it in an acceptable range. But because of those alerts, we do know that if we see a dramatic jump from the normal, that's when we're going to have to call the patient to figure out what's going on. And it varies. It depends on the doctor and the patient to determine what they're looking for. And so we have an order set usually involved.
When you look at this technology integration into your practice and what you do you find that it's really serving your patients in terms of like, hey, I really know the numbers, I really have my stuff, and that way you can fine tune how you're going to care for those patients, right?
Yeah. Well, of course, as a physician, I'm a little selfish because I need the data,
right?
And so I just want to make sure that I'm giving a patient the best care possible. For patients, though, there's a whole nother layer of benefit because in many cases, it does give them confidence that their blood pressure is controlled, but it also gives them access to health personnel. So just having somebody you can call if there's a question is so helpful. I can't tell you how many times I've had patients say, man, that service is great. I have such and such nurse. They really address my concerns. And if there's ever a question, you've got access to your physician through that nurse. And so it really is an upside for patients who feel like they get an extra layer of care.
All right, well, there you go. Folks, if you're interested in learning more about this, Pacific Cardiovascular Associates Medical Group, Dr. Chris Champion, he has all the answers for you. Make sure you call the number on the screen or go to their website for more information. Thank you, Dr. Champion.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
You're watching This Day. We'll be right back.